Stand by. Twenty seconds.
Roll the Hollywood Squares theme song.
Now.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the Durham Planning Commission. The members of the Durham Planning Commission have been appointed by the City Council and the County Board of Commissioners as an advisory board to the elected officials. You should know that the elected officials have the final vote on any issue before us tonight. Tonight's meeting is being held virtually using the Zoom virtual meeting platform. In this virtual meeting platform, public participants do not have any ability to talk or be seen on video by default. Speakers will be given the ability to speak at the appropriate time in the meeting. If you have pre-registered, your name will be called at the appropriate time for you to make your comments, just like in an in-person public hearing. If you called in before the meeting started and staff was able to get your information, your name will also be called to speak at the appropriate time as normal. You may also call in during the meeting tonight using the phone number listed at the bottom of your screen for those of you watching live from home. If you call in during the meeting, you will need to wait until the particular public hearing you are interested in starts. After all of the pre-registered speakers have shared their comments, I will ask if there is anyone else wishing to speak. At that point, you will need to digitally raise your hand by pressing *9 on your phone. When recognized, state your name and address and make your public comments. Finally, all motions are stated in the affirmative, so if a motion fails or ties, the recommendation is for denial. Thank you. May I have the roll call, please?
Yes. Commissioner Alturk.
Here.
Commissioner Baker.
Here.
Commissioner Brine. I'm sorry, Chair Hyman, Commissioner Brine has requested an excused absence for this evening.
Thank you.
Commissioner Busby.
Present.
Commissioner Durkin.
Here.
Commissioner Hyman.
Present.
Commissioner Johnson.
Present.
Commissioner Kinchin. Commissioner Kinchin might join the meeting late, but he did indicate that he would be here. Commissioner Lowe. Oh, I see you. You're present. Commissioner McIver.
Here.
Commissioner Miller.
Here.
Commissioner Morgan.
Here.
Commissioner Santiago.
Here.
And Commissioner Williams.
Here.
Okay, Chair,
Thank
we
you.
have a quorum.
Thank you. Since we do have a request for an excused absence for Commissioner Brine, may I have a motion to grant an excused absence to Commissioner Brine?
So moved, Madam Chairman.
Seconded.
Motion by Commissioner Miller, second by Commissioner Morgan, that Commissioner Brine be granted an excused absence. All in favor of this motion, may we have a roll call vote, please?
Yes. Kirk. Commissioner Alturk.
Yes. Yes.
Sorry about that. It's okay.
Okay.
Commissioner Baker.
Yes.
Commissioner Busby.
Yes.
Commissioner Durkin.
Yes.
Commissioner Hyman.
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson.
Yes.
Commissioner Lowe.
Yes.
Commissioner McIver.
Yes.
Yes.
Commissioner Miller,
Yes.
Commissioner Morgan,
Yes.
Commissioner Santiago,
Yes.
and Commissioner Williams.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let me state before we go to our first item, because there are some individuals who are actually in attendance, that there are no cases that will be heard at tonight's meeting. And now we'll move to the first item, and that is the approval of the minutes and consistency statement for the March 10, 2020 meeting.
Madam Chair, I move approval of the minutes and the consistency statement from the March 10th, 2020 meeting.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Busby, second by Commissioner Al Turk, that we approve the minutes and consistency statements for the March 10, 2020 meeting. All in favor of this motion, may we have a roll call vote, please?
Yes, Commissioner Alturk,
Yes.
Commissioner Baker,
Yes.
Commissioner Busby,
Yes.
Commissioner Durkin,
Yes.
Commissioner Hyman,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Lowe.
Yes.
I hear you. Commissioner McIver,
Yes.
Commissioner Miller,
Yes.
Commissioner Morgan,
Yes.
Commissioner Santiago,
Yes.
and Commissioner Williams.
Yes.
Okay, it's unanimous, 12-0.
Thank you. The first item that we have listed is new business, and this is a review of the virtual meeting guideline, and Assistant Director Sarah Young will make this presentation.
Good evening, everyone. It's good to see you. Shortly, we will have, and it's happening, I think, right now. Yep. A PowerPoint that I just quickly wanted to go through with you all. I know this is a new way of you all conducting business. And while the staff has had some experience with this, you all may be slightly less familiar. And so I wanted to give a chance to go through some of the legal requirements regarding having virtual public hearings and some particulars to the platform and how we will be using it. So let's go to the next slide. So the first thing that I want to mention is that there was some recent legislation passed that adds a series of requirements for when we have remote meetings, remote being virtual meetings, phone conference meetings, those kind of things. The things on this slide are things that are required by the new legislation, but things that we have always done and continue to do, so they're not new to us. We always give proper notice of the meeting. We always indicate how the public can access the meeting, whether it's a physical location or how to join the meeting virtually. We always share the materials ahead of time and publish them. And a very important thing is that the virtual meeting platform must allow all board members to speak and to hear each other talking and to hear anyone from the public talking that may be coming to make comment. The last thing, which is also something that we already do, is that the virtual meeting has to be simultaneously streamed. So in the case of Planning Commission, it is simultaneously streamed on the city's television network as well as on YouTube. So it will be there for posterity in addition to being live streamed right now. Now, there are a few things that are new requirements that are things that we have not necessarily done. And so I wanted to carefully go through those and make sure that everyone understands. The first is that if a board member cannot be seen on camera, then they must identify themselves when they speak. So if you are a board member that does not have video capability, every time you say something, you need to identify yourself. So I would say, Sarah Young, I vote yes, or Sarah Young, I'd like to ask a question, or Sarah Young, am I getting on your nerves yet? Whatever. So that's something that needs to be, I know it will take some kind of retraining of our brains to do that, but please get in the habit of doing that if you do not have video capability. The second thing is that the legislation requires that all votes be taken by roll call. And you saw that Chair Hyman already instituted that from the beginning of the meeting. So it is procedurally takes us a few more minutes to do, but we need to be doing that for every single vote that the commission might take. The next thing is a very helpful reminder that the legislation makes it clear that all chats, instant messages, text messages, emails, any other written communication between the board members about the public business occurring during the timeframe of the public meeting is a public record. So in the guide that we sent out to you all, we are recommending that you not engage in the chat with other board members, that you reserve the chat for either procedural or technical issues that need to be addressed, and not have sidebar conversations, but we can talk more about that. A couple of important things in terms of your internet connection and access to the meeting. If a member loses internet connection or leaves the meeting for whatever reason, and they were needed for a quorum, the quorum is lost and the meeting has to stop. One of the things that we're recommending in the guide is if we lose someone for some reason, it's good to take a brief recess. We can recess the meeting to see if that member can reestablish a connection. The other thing that is recommended, and we can go into this a little more later, is that you have a second device if you have a phone or an iPad, and you also have a computer and you're running the platform on one or the other. You can have a second one that is muted, completely silent, that if you need to reconnect through that means you can. You can also reconnect by calling in on just a regular phone as well. So it would be useful, I think, to keep the phone number handy. And similarly, if a member loses a connection and leaves the meeting, their vote is not counted in the affirmative. Their vote isn't counted at all. So normally our practice by your rules of procedure is unless someone is excused, they can leave the meeting and their vote is counted in the affirmative for any subsequent votes. That is not the case in a virtual meeting scenario. Okay. Last few things regarding the legislation. Our minutes for these meetings will have to indicate that they were held virtually, who was here, obviously, and when members joined or left the meeting. So if someone comes late 2 items in, then in the minutes, we will have to very clearly say that that member joined at that time. There's also an item I think that has caused a fair amount of confusion, perhaps for folks in that legislation, which says that for public hearings particularly, that we have to allow public comments to be submitted through the entire notice window up until 24 hours after the public hearing. I will tell you that our city attorneys have advised that it does not apply to the city's special charter authority, that the city can go ahead and take action. We will still continue to leave the window open for any comments. The county does not feel that they have that authority. So the county, when cases move forward to the county, they have elected to place them on a subsequent agenda, a consent agenda for the final vote afterwards. So they will not be acting on cases in one meeting, but the city will. So I just wanted to share that with you all because I know that may be kind of a confusing thing. All right, so a little bit of meeting etiquette, kind of best practices. Remember that this is not just something that's being viewed by us on the call, but rather this is also being televised just like our normal meetings. So please try and minimize distractions. I know for myself, my pets are locked up right now. When you are not speaking, please mute yourself. If we notice that there's a lot of background noise, sometimes we can even get some feedback. Staff may mute you if that is a problem and you have not muted yourself. I also want to touch base a little bit about using the raise hand feature to speak. For those of you that may not be familiar with the Zoom platform, there's a button that says participants. If you click that button, a little screen will pop up probably to the side of your screen. And it includes a list of everyone that's in the meeting. There are 2 tabs, a panelist tab and an attendees tab. And then it also includes at the bottom a few buttons, one of which is the raise hand button. So when you would like to speak, what you need to do is press that little button that says raise hand. And if people want to practice right now, that's okay, they can do that. That will cue Chair Hyman to keep an eye out and then recognize people that want to speak. That'll be the most orderly way for you all to get recognized, particularly because since some people don't have cameras, it would be impossible for you just to like wave your hand and ask to be recognized. Couple other things, as I mentioned earlier, please do not engage in sidebar conversations digitally. during the meeting. If you do have technical issues, something is going on with your microphone, your connection or something, you can use the chat to contact Chris Peterson, who is our main tech support for these meetings. Or his email is also provided. You can email him. If you have a procedural question, sometimes something may come up about the rules of procedure or some technical aspect of an application. You can email or chat with Grace directly on that. And of course, if there is an issue with inappropriate behavior, we certainly can mute folks or remove them from the meeting altogether if that's absolutely necessary. All right, so a few recommendations. We know that virtual meetings are challenging to manage for long periods of time. I know I sat in on the city council meeting that lasted, I don't know, 4 or 5 hours today, and it was exhausting. So, and certainly the longer a digital meeting goes on, the more chances that folks may have issues in the stability of their internet connection. There may be home distractions that make it challenging to sit there for a long period of time. So keep these things in mind as we have these meetings. So for efficiency, we'd like to recommend a few things. Like I mentioned earlier, have a second device running in case you're disconnected. Make sure that you have the call-in number in case you need to rejoin and you can't do it online. One thing that's not on this list that I'm going to mention is for those of you that do not have video camera access, you can use a photograph of yourself so that instead of just your name appearing on the screen, it'll be a still image of you. That is helpful, I think, to the viewing public at home to be able to see a face. And then the last thing is that we highly recommend that you set speaker time limits, which is normally your normal practice, but also commissioner time limits. And so that's something that I think Chair Hyman would like to discuss with you all. And at that, I will take any questions that you have. The guide obviously contained a lot more information about the particulars of working in this platform. I hope you all have reviewed it. Let me know if you have questions, if there's something in particular that you want me to go into further.
I had one question. If we get disconnected and have to call in on our phones, how does it know our phone that we're a participant and not an attendee?
So it won't necessarily know. One thing that we would ask is it might be good for everybody to send us their cell phone numbers or home phone numbers, whatever phone you might call from, so that we can recognize the number when it comes in. And we can go ahead and promote you to panelist status, and you can kind of rejoin the meeting that way. We do have your phone numbers, but they were from your applications when you first joined the commission. So we're not 100% sure that that's your preferred number or that that's the number you would be calling from. So I think that's one thing I would ask Grace maybe to follow up with you all after this meeting and get your most current numbers that you would be using so we can recognize them.
Makes sense.
Sarah, perfect timing for that question, Commissioner Durkin, and Sarah, perfect timing on what you just said. I recognized the phone number. Well, I didn't recognize it. I was curious about the phone number in our panelist, in our participant list. And so I looked at the roster, and it's actually Mr. Kinchin. He's been here the whole time. So I need to correct the attendance record that he is here. He was listening on his phone, and he knows that he can hit *9 to raise his hand and speak. And he's perfectly welcome to do that anytime if he's listening. But I wanted to make sure that you all knew that. So when I saw that number, I felt like I should look at the roster, and that's what I did. So I've been texting him and keeping in touch, so he is there.
Chris, would you mind promoting Commissioner Kinchin, please?
I'm unable, I can rename him in just a second, but I'm unable
Okay.
to move him to the panelist panel as a phone caller. You must.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, you can give him the ability, rename him and give him the ability to speak. All right, well, Chris is working behind the scenes on that. Other questions before you all tackle the time limits question?
Mr. Ketchum, you do have the ability to speak right now if you wish.
There was a question in the chat from someone, I think maybe from the public, so I don't know if we want to address that at some point.
Oh, that is, so that's actually one of our staff members who is usually behind the scenes running the cameras, but will now be helping us. The public, well, for most meetings, we will not have the chat enabled for the public. Again, chats are public record, and so we don't want to have sidebar conversations. I think it would be challenging for the public to realize that something that they may have just offhanded typed has now become a public record. So I think for future meetings when we actually have cases, we will disable that for the public, just kind of to safeguard that. Just like in a regular meeting, you would not really allow the public to sit there and, you know, be having conversations. I think it's kind of the same thing. It's but again, that's, you know, if there are concerns about that, let me know. But we're trying to manage these meetings as best we can.
I do see that Mr. Kitchen has his hand raised. Is that a test of the feature, or is he able to speak at this time?
I see a phone number ending in 6066. I don't believe that's Mr. Ketchum, but this person is able to speak right now. Phone number ending in 6066.
Yes, that's actually Amir Kenton. Good evening. Nothing to say. Thank you for all your help.
Thank you.
All right, so I think Chair Hyman, if you wanted to have the discussion about time limits.
Yes, normally during our meetings, we're able to speak as long as we need to in order to get clarification. I think that during the virtual meetings, it's going to be important that we be very concise and thoughtful in our interactions. So we're looking at just a 1 to 2 minutes, you know, of response, and keeping it within a 3-minute window. I'd like to hear some discussion about that since we have 3 actual meetings that we will be conducting next week, so.
So it's Tom Miller here.
Yes.
My own feeling is that although this is awkward, I think we also have to remember that, and this is something that concerns me. I believe we do need to do this, but I think we need to be mindful that for at least a lot of people in the public, this is really constrained public participation. And I want to make sure that we do not impose rules on this before we've even tried it, that even further constrain the ability of the public to participate, or commission members to participate, and people who are watching to understand what's going on. And so I appreciate the need for everybody to be reasonably concise. At this time, without having even tried it with a case yet, I think it might be early for us to impose some sort of rules or understandings limiting time.
Are there other commissioners who would like to address this issue?
I would like to just add that we should, to the extent that we can, we should try and be respectful of the fact that we have multiple meetings in a very short number of days as well. So we should limit them and not have lengthy meetings 2 next week and 1 the following week. I understand, I appreciate the fact that we haven't tried this in real life yet, but we can give it a good go to keep things efficient.
Thank you. Are there other commissioners who would like to speak?
This is Nate Baker. I think that we need to be mindful of keeping comments short, keeping meetings short. But I tend to agree with Tom that I don't think that we need to rush into setting some sort of maximum amount of time that each person can speak at this point. I think that we should be mindful of the amount of time that we speak, and we should adjust as needed.
Then what I'm also hearing is that as we go through the actual meetings and we find that we are either repeating the same issue or discussing the same thing, that it may be appropriate then to say that, you know, and I will at least, you know, just kind of nudge to let everybody know that it's like, okay, I think it's, you know, we can move on, just so that we're not into repeating and going over the same thing. Because before, I think one of the things we have done is to just carry a thought through until we've exhausted it or have full clarification about what it is that, you know, that we're discussing. And we put no limits on it. I'm just saying that I think it would be helpful for us to be mindful of the, you know, of the amount of time that we're using in questioning and addressing. And I agree, we have not tried this. We have a lot of meetings coming up, and we may adjust by the day. So we may adjust from one day to the next, you know, depending on how we use the time and how efficient we are. Any other comments? Other commissioners?
Yeah, I believe Commissioner Alturk had his hand up.
Okay, I can't see it.
That's okay. I lowered it. I think
Okay.
I was I think what I was going to say. I think you've already said it, Chair Hyman. So I think that's right. I think we should experiment with it and then go from there. So
okay.
We'll see what.
Are there other comments about the materials that we have discussed? Everybody feels ready because we are going to tackle a lot of issues next week.
So if I may, Madam Chairman, it's Tom Miller again.
Yes.
At the Interneighborhood Council meeting on Tuesday night, some members of the public who are interested in a couple of cases which are on our schedule for next week told me that they had not received notice letters yet. And I was hoping maybe somebody with staff could tell me where we stood with that. These are the Oxford Highway, Carver Street Extension cases. I mean, it seems to me if you were in the notice radius, in that cases, those cases I believe are scheduled for Tuesday. You should have received a letter by Tuesday of this week. Is that not correct?
Yes, I can answer that question, Commissioner Miller. I actually had an exchange with someone about that very thing today, and it turns out they don't live in the notice area. So that's why they did not get a letter. The letters were mailed last week on Tuesday. And so people that live within the 600-foot notice area have received letters.
Excellent. Thank you. That certainly is an explanation. Perfect. Thank you.
Are there any other comments, questions about the materials? Would like to thank Sarah for her presentation. But that is all that we have on the agenda for tonight's discussion. So are there any other questions? Now is the time.
Chairman Hyman, when the time is appropriate, I had one last thing before we adjourn, but I can wait until all of the commissioners are through with their questions.
Thank you for alerting me. Other commissioners? If we're all comfortable and ready to go, then Grace, we'll hear from you at this time.
Yes, I just had one more announcement I wanted to make sure that everybody was aware of, and when I wanted to get it on the record during the meeting, that case Z19-00008, which is 3259 Rose of Sharon Road. That was at our March meeting. If you remember, it was continued until we were to meet again. That case was on, so we will not be having that case come back before us. I wanted to make sure that you knew that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other comments or announcements?
I just had a quick question I thought of, Chair Hyman. If there's a case that comes up that we need to recuse ourselves from, is there any special protocol, or do we just mute ourselves and sit back, or is there anything that we need to do differently than we would do in a normal meeting?
Well, Grace, can you respond to that? Because as a matter of public record, it's important for us to be transparent to, if we have someone who is recusing themselves from a case. So how would we do that? That's a good question.
Madam Chair, if I might, I think what we would recommend in that case is for the commissioner to mute their mic and turn their video off. So similarly to how normally they would walk out of the council chambers and wait in the lobby and then rejoin the group for the next case, I think the virtual equivalent would be to turn their camera and microphone off.
Would this be actually announced during the meeting that commissioner is stepping out because of, okay, all right.
Yep.
Okay.
That's correct. You have to have a motion and we have to vote
Okay.
on their recusal. So that would happen first. That's correct.
Okay, all right, very good. Are there any other questions or comments? Are there any other comments from staff? Any other things that we need to address before closing?
Madam Chair, I just wanted to ask Tom Miller again. I'm sorry, I have to get used to this. There are a couple of people from the public here, and I just wanted to make sure we did not adjourn until we made sure that they had some opportunity to ask a question or say something.
I'll have to double check on the protocol for that because that means that they are waiting. Are they waiting? We have Chris Patterson in our room that allows them in, has not addressed me about anyone waiting, so.
We have two individuals, or actually now one person just left. We have a single individual, a Miss Laura Good, in our meeting. If they wish to speak, if you wish to have them speak, you can do so now.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair Hyman. This is Laura Good, and I do not have any comments. I was just observing. Thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate it.
Madam Chairman, Tom Miller, thank you for doing that.
Thank you. Thank you for reminding me that there are others who were actually in the waiting rooms. So if there are no other comments or questions, if all business for tonight has been addressed, then I'm going to ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Seconded.
Thank you. The meeting is officially adjourned.
Bye, everyone. Thank you for coming.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.